Hey everybody, let me first apologize for the background noise. I am shooting this video in the Salt Lake City airport. I'm on the first leg of my journey out to California, and of course, because I am who I am, I didn't get take the opportunity on Thursday to talk about the context of The Last of the Mohicans. You can look up a lot of things online that will provide you um, good historical context for both the novel and the film. I just want to give you kind of the broad outline of that so that you'll better understand why we're going to finish with that film. And of course, to remind you that if you have any questions about your Pocahontas paper, that you please send me those via email. If you want me to look over a rough draft, even if it's just a part of a rough draft, or even if it's just a question about your thesis statement, whether you're on the right track, send those to me and I'll be more than happy to help out with all of that. So in terms of the context for The Last of the Mohicans, this was originally a novel written by James Fenimore Cooper, one of the first great American novelists. The book was published in 1826, and of course, if you think back to our discussions of the past month or month and a half, we know that that was the time frame in which Indian removal was being debated, in which there was kind of this notion of the romanticized noble savage, and the idea that there were vanishing Indians. And what that idea means to capture is this notion that white settlers had of eventually pushing all of the Native Americans out of the way, or incorporating them through assimilation into mainstream American society. Of course, as we figured out with the debates over and the actual execution of Indian removal in the 1830s, we know that assimilation was sort of an ideal that was promised but was never the reality. Um, it was extremely difficult for Native people to be accepted as equals of their white peers in that period of time in U.S. history. So again, think about the kinds of characters that are presented in the film. Of course, they're different than a little bit different than the way that those characters are portrayed in the novels, as is always the case. Um, but I think it's important to understand that that's where this story originated. So again, think about what that would have meant in its original historical context to tell a story like the one we're going to see this week. The second context for the film is the time when the film itself came out. So the film was released in 1991. That was just on the cusp of the 500-year anniversary of Christopher Columbus, quote-unquote, discovering the Americas. So 1992 is a big year. There were a lot of celebrations held to both kind of honor the memory of European colonization of the Americas, but also to critique that. There were many indigenous peoples and various indigenous movements that raised their voices to make sure that their sides of the story were heard, that their perspectives were included in this 500-year celebration, so that they wouldn't just be, once again, erased from historical memory. Of course, that is all very, as we know, can lead to a lot of very hot controversies and contexts. So The Last of the Mohicans, think about whether or not that film and its portrayal of the Leatherstocking novels, whether or not it is commemorating and kind of honoring colonization, or if it's honoring the resiliency of indigenous peoples, or both. As we've figured out this semester, stories, when told from multiple perspectives especially, can be extremely complex as we look back at our history. So again, think about what some of the shortcomings might be of the film, but what kind of story it tells and how it helps us think about not just the history of the British colonial period, but also the history of the 1820s and 30s and the history of the 1990s. I hope you have a good Tuesday, good start